Hello, you amazing people. Welcome to another episode of Inspire Her live chats where I'm just talking to amazing women who have inspired me on my journey. So I'm Thalea, the face behind Asanki Soul and Asanki Soul Coaching, and I have just really been reflecting over this month as I celebrate 5 years of starting my own business and walking this very different path that has had its highs, has its lows, has its challenges, and it's a testament to the women that I surround myself with that really inspired me on my journey. And with this also being Women's Month, I really felt this intuitive nudge to chat to and bring on some women that have really shaped the way I show up in the world. And I'm excited to introduce to you today to a beautiful sister of mine, Annette Muller. She's a wild soul, a brave, courageous spirit, and I'm just so excited to have a beautiful, intentional conversation with her today. So I'm going to add her as she enters the chat here. Oh, welcome, welcome. Hi.
Hi, my darling.
How are you?
I'm on my second day of my bleed, so I'm very grounded in my womb.
All right. Thank you again for saying yes and just being part of this very intuitive nudge to just talk to some really important, inspiring women that have really shaped me on my journey as I've been reflecting this last couple of weeks. And so before we jump in, I thought, as I do with all, let's take a deep breath just to ground and set a beautiful intention to just have this open-hearted conversation and allow it to lead where it needs to, and with the intention to inspire all that listen. And so taking a deep inhale in through the nose and releasing out through the mouth. Another inhale. If you are watching, listening, breathe with us. Take another inhale in through the nose. And just releasing the busyness of the day, tuning into the body, just allowing our full presence to be here, to open up this conversation, to lead with our hearts, to just have a wonderful chat this evening with the intention that it leaves whoever listens with some hope and some encouragement and some inspiration as we all walk our divine journeys. Yeah. Yeah, welcome. Yay. And like I said, as I was introducing you, so this is how I see you. And then I'm going to ask you a few questions. But I really see you as this courageous, strong, soft, feminine, bold woman who I've been following you for like the last 5 years or so. And I think just watching you use your voice, do all the crazy things that you've done. I love that you are multi-talented, multifaceted woman that have tried many things and found your flow through it all. And that's really something that's inspired me. It's really inspired me to know that there isn't just one way to do something, and you can try it all and figure it out and get messy in it all and learn and grow and evolve. And so thank you for being that inspiration in my world. Yeah, and so I want to ask you, who is Annette today?
I guess the most consistent thing is the change that happens at least once a year. There's like a new passion. And I don't know if you know human design, but
Yeah.
I am a 3/6, and I just felt so much relief when I learned that because I'm a double 3, which means experimenter. So my life is an experiment, and I guess who I am is the nature of change and cycles, and there's always a consistent theme of earth first, body first, woman as beings of earth who birth. That's always a kind of anchor to what I do and who I am. And yeah, just these changing expressions of the feminine and faces of what it means to be a woman or even a human.
Mm.
Um, and ultimately to follow joy and what sparks inspiration, um, even if it doesn't make sense.
Mm.
It brings energy, and so I'm one to, follow that flow.
Yeah. That's amazing. And thank you for paving that way and making it like, for me, you paving that way of experimenting and trying and evolving and changing just makes the human experience real. And
Mhm.
it's okay, like we need more people, like we need to surround yourself with more people just trying different things. That gives you permission to go out and try different things. And you've been that permission slip to me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And before you realized you are this experiment, I'm sure you were probably the experimenter as a young kid too. Probably the one that just did everything and it probably came so natural to you. But probably as you were evolving, growing up, where did what was your challenges that you were struggling with that got you to be acceptant of where you are now?
I think the most defining moment was I obviously was very rebellious and experimental, but I was also this A student,
Mm.
perfectionist, kind of the child that wanted to go overseas to study and that her parents put so much spotlight on and wanting to please them. And essentially, I moved to London to study law and business. And I remember distinctly when I was 21, I'd got into a really great university. I got my first. I was going to go on from my BSc to do law. And I was working in nightclubs part time to make money on the side, drinking and partying, but also, just living the London life. And I remember being really unwell and um, quite disassociated from my body, and just on this hamster wheel, and got quite sick. And I remember having to sit my mother and my stepdad down. We were on a train to Berlin, actually. And they were so excited about, me going on to do this law conversion. And I actually have a note in my diary that's
Mm.
like, today's the day I'm going to tell them that I don't want to be a lawyer. And like, I'm so sorry, but I don't know who I am and I don't know what I want to do, but I need you to kind of like set me free. And I remember I told my mom and she cried. And she was just like, so I think she wanted to be a lawyer,
Yeah.
and she just had this idea of my potential. Luckily, my stepfather was quite open. He was very entrepreneurial and he kind of knew that I wasn't cut out for like an office job.
Mm.
And yeah, I just remember that moment of individuating from our parents' expectations of who we think we should be to
Mm.
this honest moment of, I don't know who I am, and I need you to let me figure it out. And I've got this degree, I kind of ticked all the boxes. Now I'm going to go to Ibiza, do some plant medicine, and like figure out my life. And
Yeah.
it was like funny enough, I think Instagram had just come out, or
Yeah.
Facebook. So a lot of that experimentation was public, which much to my poor family's horrors, I did go through this like really kind of vocal and raging and yeah, kind of angry feminine
Mm.
process of realizing like, wow, I have been conditioned to be this nice, accommodating, like girl who was groomed to become kind of a pawn of the patriarchy, you could say,
Mm.
like in the system, working for the man, these big kind of companies that I would have done contract law for, and just realizing like, I don't want to play this game. And I don't know what the new game is, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, while I'm at it.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny you say that now because I just can't even like I see so much of the law and the justice and the like, I see it so much in you, but I just don't see that like box. Like I'm like, I just don't see it. I see, it's so funny. And I love that that journey led you to experiment, to figure it out, to figure out your own path. Because I had a very similar one where I was also very much pleased, did the things, went through the system, got the job. And when I started working in that corporate job, I physically started getting sick as well. And that's when I started getting diagnosed with anxiety and put on this medication and all of these things. But my body knew that that wasn't true. And so my body rejected the medication. And that's when I realized, like, no, something has to change. And I had to change my environment. And that's when things like radically changed for me. And so I love that you could know from such like, you picked it up quite early on where you realize, like, I have a choice here. And I think sometimes when we're in those situations, when we have this deep desire to please, especially our family, we kind of feel like our choice is taken away and we can't have our little experimental phase. And I think that's so needed for anybody, especially coming out of a schooling system or coming out of any system, is to find that space where you can just kind of try a whole bunch of things and figure out what makes you tick, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, to say I am grateful for the privilege of the safety net. Like I knew that there was always Cape Town to come back to, and I had a family who, you know, I could move back in with my parents if I needed to. I'd sort of saved enough money working in nightclubs, but I always say to people, have multiple side hustles. Like I was already thinking about, okay, I can use modeling as one stream. I can work in the nightclubs and do the door of these events. I can sell little bits of products. Like having that understanding. I think I grew up with an entrepreneur, so always knowing that there's ways to kind of make do as you're in that phase of building, and also to be resourceful in terms of how you spend. People often ask me how I traveled for 5 years. I never paid for accommodation. Like I was always making friends. I was on couches. I was, you know, like cleaning people's places or offering yoga classes. Always figuring out a way that I could have a bed to sleep in, and through that, making beautiful contacts that then became, you know, clients or centers that I would work at. So if there's a will, there's a way. Because I think a lot of people say, you know, like the financial fear is the thing that keeps them stuck to a job and to an environment that's maybe not supportive of their body, and to start really thinking creatively around, okay, how can I firstly save and be more resourceful, but also think of ways that I can make money and move money, because money does also want to flow when there's joy.
Yeah.
And we're far more creative than we allow ourselves to be.
Yeah.
Especially
So,
now, like social media was my platform. A lot of my work just came through getting online, talking about what I was going through, and then offering teaching to women. Like I earned my best money coaching online, and
yeah.
just being there to just say things, as you say, being brave.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for naming that and sharing that, because a lot, like, I never, like, the way that I show up, I always want to tell the whole story. And I never want to just highlight we made it to this country and look at me now and I'm doing this thing and look at me now, because there's so much that goes on behind that. They are those moments where we go into fear spirals, and we get the self-doubt comes in, and what am I actually doing with my life, kind of those questions that happens all the time. But it's also just like, then really, that's why it's so important to know yourself a little bit. Like, we learn ourselves every day a little bit more, but knowing your why behind why you do the things that you do. And so I think when you give yourself space to experiment, you give yourself space to find out what's that joy. What lights you up? Where's that creative flair? And that can be turned into so many different things, as you said. And then you can switch on that brain of like, okay, cool. Who do I partner with? Who do I speak to? How do I connect? And it's like the one thing just kind of leads to the next thing when you're in that flow. And how did you discover that for yourself?
You know, as you're talking, I also am thinking about generosity. Like, so much of what happened in my life came through connections and people going, oh, we want you to talk at this festival, or we've so enjoyed your video on Instagram, please be on our course. And then that opened up, people in Europe and the same in America. So I really believe in kindness and goodness and generosity. Because if you have a generous spirit and you genuinely do want to serve your medicine, whether like for me now it's kind of acting and expressing my talent in that way, when there's this true intent to share yourself, things show up for you. So there is a magic to being open to life, and I often say this to my siblings or to my mentees: pay attention and always be open to connection, like to anybody that's crossing your path. Like you never know where your next job opportunity or collaboration or it's always kind of weaving in those ways. So I've always lived my life with that ethos, and I truly believe that that is why I am where I am today.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's so true. I give so much credit to the people and the places that I've met along the way. And I always say it's like the more you just stay kind, open, the more you just give, the more you will receive. It's this beautiful flow and the secular loving of us being this woman body. That's how our body literally regenerates. It's through doing that. And so I love that you are also such a deeply grounded Pachamama Earth Lady. I also see you as like I said, there's so many different dimensions to you, which is amazing. And I love that you care so much about people, firstly, and the planet, because it all coincides. We are not one without the other. And when you started your, it's a funny story because I indirectly call you my weed dealer to other people. I
I
literally
am a
had a little
believer.
gathering. I had a little gathering on Sunday, and I had your wild nettle. For those that don't know, Annette makes these beautiful infusions, and she'll share more about them. And I have them always on display where I make some and people try them and stuff. And I had one woman come and she's like allergic to everything. And she was like, oh, I'm always looking for something more herbal. And I explained everything to her. And I'm literally like packing bags. I'm like, I'm literally turning to your weed dealer and I'm giving her bags of nettle.
Yes, I am a weed dealer. I am. Yeah, so how that came about, the weeds and the earth. It is really interesting because at one point in my London life, there was a version of herbs at festivals, but now we're in the holistic, distributing of herbal medicine, and ultimately it came through my own necessity. So during those years of like kind of coming out of the clubs and the modeling, my body was in dire need of support, and it too rejected the antibiotics and the medication. My father's a doctor, so my eczema and my gut problems and my anxiety, I recognize that my body needs support and sustenance. And so I kind of looked to herbal medicine and Chinese medicine, and I did my Reiki and my yoga. And I remember doing like a lot of these detox plans and these strong bitter pills and supplements, and just kind of having the sense that it was quite restricting and almost punishing. Like I was being punished for my bad behavior. And I remember I was in New York at the time, and I went and saw this old witch who lived in the woods in upstate New York, like literally an old witch who lived with goats. Like she's this archetypal figure. I don't know if anybody knows Baba Yaga, but it's like this kind of old lady with like most people are afraid of. But I remember reading her herbal books and just being like, I need to meet this woman. And I found her website and ended up driving to her farm. And I remember distinctly, before you went there, you had to sign a kind of indemnity form that said you will not sue Susan. for Susan will expose, she's like a shaman, she will expose your fears and you will meet your rage or something. And I remember being like, okay, bring it on. Anyway, end up going to this woman's farm, and she was absolutely mad and absolutely brilliant. One of the greatest teachers I had the privilege of apprenticing with, and she took me out into the woods and pointed out these wild weeds and said, "These are the plants that most people pull out, poison, or disregard because they refuse to be commercialized. They refuse to give up. They are resilient. And we humans need to learn from these plants because they have survived over centuries." And I started drinking and making herbal infusions, and slowly but surely my body started restoring itself. My immune system, I had really bad adrenal fatigue at the time, my digestive system. I really see it as these weeds have the minerals, they've got the highest source of minerals like micronutrients because they grow wild. They've not been genetically modified and they grow in soil that is not depleted. So all the veggies that we eat are mass produced in agricultural settings that unfortunately are more interested in making like pretty big colorful fruit versus like the true nutrient dense fruit that our ancestors used to eat. And so wild food gives you back those minerals that we're lacking from our everyday diets. And essentially, yeah, it worked for me. And I remember during COVID when everyone was freaking out about their health, I had people calling me being like, "What are you doing? What do we do?" And I started in my garage just like making these herbal packs for people. And yeah, it kind of grew from there. I resisted it so much because I hated the idea of making a business out of this very wild passion of mine. But recently I've come to this place of business can be a form of activism. And we live in a world where people don't get to forage for their medicine. And so if I can just be a source of nutritional support, then, hallelujah. And if that can give people jobs and if that can grow to, help farmers, then I'm here for that type of a business.
Beautiful. I love that you took your time with it. You resisted it. It came back. It's in you. It's part of you now. And then you flipped it and realized like this is still, even though it's wild, it's free, everybody can get it. Like I don't want to turn another thing into a commodity and, adding to the whole consumerism thing, but just recognizing the need for it, firstly, recognizing how important it is to have something that people can have options because it's not there or it's not readily available. People don't even just have the knowledge around it,
Yes.
right? And I
Yes.
think you do such a good job of, even on your page, just like sharing the knowledge behind it. And that, I feel like knowledge is power. People are just taking things because they told they need to take things. But when you have the knowledge that accompanies what you're taking and you understand what it's there for and you take it over a consistent time, you'll start to see your body respond to it differently. And you start, because that's what it does, it regulates your nervous system for you from the inside out, and so that's such a beautiful gift that you are giving to us all. And through then having a sustainable business in the way that you are going to model it and structure it so that you are making jobs for other people, you are giving people livelihoods, and looking at it from that aspect, there's no way that you are not you giving and receiving something so beautiful. So keep going. This is me encouraging you. And thank you for sharing the story of how it all came about. And it's so funny because most of the stuff that, and I'm sure anybody listening, if you resonate with this, let us know. The thing that you're resisting the most is probably the thing that's your biggest gift. It's like, oh, I don't want to speak up. I don't want to be on camera. I don't want to. But then deep down inside, there's that voice that's been like, just do it. Just do it. And the more you do it, the more confidence grows. And then the more you start to love it. And it turns into something that you could never imagine what it could actually be. And so the encouragement is to just try. And so your travels and your adventures and your journey took you all over the world. And then what made you decide to come back to South Africa?
Someone asked me that the other day, and it first wasn't really a choice. I
Mm.
was engaged, which
Mm.
most people don't know that, but I was once engaged and living in New York, and it was just before lockdown, and
Yeah.
that
Mm.
crumbled, and I was kind of stuck in New York City. And I remember thinking, this is not a place I want to be locked down in. So I came back to Cape Town just before the sort of big shutdown of the airports. And whilst here, I remember really getting closer to my family. A lot of stuff came up during that time. I think it was like the perfect pause to unearth many of our traumas and hidden ancestral.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, a lot of stuff with South Africa was the land, the history, apartheid. Like it was so still raw. I mean, I was born in 1993, so like really just as it all ended.
Mm.
But there was still so much unresolved pain, I think, in the collective field. And if you're sensitive, you can't just kind of walk around the city and not see and feel it. And I remember just, being in London or being away was easier not to see. But once I came back during COVID as an adult, I also recognized that all of this traveling and all of this, because I was doing racial healing work in the States, I was always interested in Indigenous activism. And
Mm.
at one point, I was living in North Dakota with Native American tribes. I'd always had this love of land and, original people and care for
Mm.
people. But I realized that all of that work was to come home and actually implement it and do it in my own home,
Mm.
where I'm at the coalface of my own discomfort and my own, like recognizing of, okay, what does it mean to be a bridge here? What does it mean to speak to the things that many white people in the city don't want to speak to? And yeah, I think we live in a very complex country. We are that like hot pot of so many different cultures and histories, and such a mixed bag that there's never one story. There's so many layers and sides of that story, which I still to this day in my own heritage, with my kind of Afrikaans and French side, I'm still learning. But yeah, I recognize that this is the most, for me, I've been around the world,
Mm.
beautiful, precious place in the world. And I see it now more and more, these very soulful people actually coming from around the world to this place. And I really feel like we are the tip of Africa, which to me, Africa is the heart of the world.
Mm.
And if we can get this right, if we can figure out how to truly live as this rainbow nation, as this rainbow warriors, and somehow work out a way to make right the past, then that can become a blueprint for the rest of the world. Like it really has that potential, and that's my dream. So I'm here to yeah, be a piece of that puzzle in some way.
Mm, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I resonate a lot with your story of coming back because I came back. I was also away for about 6 or 7 years throughout the world, and then I also came back just before lockdown kind of hit South Africa and Cape Town, and I felt it was like a deep calling to come back. And the timing of it was just profound because we there was no escape, there was no running. You could not just go to a different place and turn a blind eye to what was happening here. And it really helped me restore part of me. And I realized in the coming back that I was running away, and I needed to sit still to just be and make peace and actually love where I come from and love who I am as a colored woman. You know, so much of me has been distorted, and me going to different places, it was like, why is it when I go to a different country, I can be so proud of who I am, but when I come back, there's like this, oh no, I'm better than, or there's this like, what is this internal battles going on here? And a lot of that came up for me, and I had to sit with it, and I even had to make piece with my curly hair, and like there's so many layers to it because it was like, no white enough, you're not black enough. It's so layered that led me to doing the work that I do now with generational trauma, with understanding and with the reclamation of who you are, and stepping in and realizing that this melting pot of everything is such a gift if you sit down and you actually sit in it and listen to everybody's stories and have space for everybody's different experiences of what they are going through. And there's not another place in the world that has it to this extent. That's what I think it makes it so special. And so now with hindsight, I can look at it with so much reverence and so much grace and so much appreciation for the generations that walked and fought the fight that we get to sit and have these kind of conversations today, you know? And it's not even that long ago if you think about it. And it's just, yeah, it brings a lot to perspective. And so I'm with you on that mission of trying to heal the world, heal our Africa so it spreads out. You know, we all unite together doing this work, which is so beautiful. And that's what made you even, I'm sure, you and Lexa had on last week, and we had such a beautiful chat, and how you even maybe came about doing We Gather as like seasonal gatherings just to bring that like that urban community. Because and thank you, I said to her as well, I was so thankful that you guys invited me to share in the last one. And again, it's about collaborating, it's about connection, it's about bringing people together and fostering this urban community. And as I was even just contemplating what you guys were creating, it made me think of like so much of the work that we do, it's necessary to go radical. It's necessary to rebel. It's necessary to experience your experience through it. And then there's this coming back to center. And then there's this integration. And then there's like, okay, now let's build, you know? And I feel like that's where I'm at now. And I feel that in you too, because I've seen the radical doing all the things. I've seen it all. And I see there's an integrated, calmer version of you now. There's a part of you that's like, I love myself, but I'm also here for the we. And I've noticed you because I read, she's a writer too. Guys, when I say Annette does a lot of things, she does a lot of things. And I read one of your Substacks when you were talking about your journey through acting now, and how that's really shook you to your core and realized like, oh, am I the selfish, self-obsessed person that's now like, and so I see this deep integration with you and where you're building and where you're going, and it's beautiful to see the journey of it. If you want to speak to that at all.
Yes. Thank you for naming that. I think it's such an important piece because so the truth is we go into this work initially for our own healing. Like I know for myself that, you know, female rage, festival girl, you know, all of that expression was to liberate my own blocked voice, my own repressed sense of sexuality or self, or, you know, whatever it was. And as you say, as we mature, and I really also see it as quite like an archetypal journey, it's that maiden phase that really requires her own space and voice and you know, full embodiment. And as we now mature into the mother, there is a sense of, oh wait, it's not just I, it's we, and how am I birthing my work, my service, my child into a communal village? Because I actually cannot sustain life, children, work, without the we, without the support of my immediate family, my sister, and then the culture and community in which I live in. And yeah, so it's definitely a humbling journey to go, okay, what is teamwork? What is leaning on others? It's for sure the greatest edge in my life as a like triple Aries. I have so much Aries in my chart. I'm very much like an initiator and leader and can start things, but the whole thing now is like, whew, okay, lean back, trust, work together, slow it down. You know, you can go, what's that like quote? You can go fast alone, but further together. Yeah, so We Gather is definitely a commitment Lexi and I made to each other and to this ache for a village, and to start yeah, spotlighting other facilitators, because we really know our place in our facilitation. But there, like you, are so many incredible other facilitators out there that, it's just like that door that you just give open and you never know what happens from there. So
Yeah.
that's really the intention
Mm.
behind it.
And it's
Yeah.
really, really beautiful. And I was chatting to a friend about it, and as I was explaining that experience, she said something so funny, and I just laughed. And I was like, maybe you're right. She's like, it sounds like you graduated, like you've leveled up. And I was like, because it was a very big edge for me, to show up in that space and to be called up. And so I think this is why it's so important who you surround yourself with. And it's important to have the support system around you that calls you up and calls you into things. Sometimes we need that push, and it's through those experiences that you can create for others. And I always pay that forward to others, and I'm the one that activates everybody else. And so it's nice to be on the receiving side of that, and it's this beautiful dance between it all that everybody wins at the end of the day. And I've just been really leaning into that space a lot, and I've loved it. It's been my ultimate joy because I find so much inspiration in the collaboration, in the just working together alongside. Like you said, it is kind of, because it can be triggering at times and it can do all these things, but that's part of the journey. You're not going to experience that if you're going to be isolated and stuck in your own little bubble, where I have been for a very long time. And that has really initiated me to step out and continue to collaborating and working alongside other amazing people. And so I can learn and lean on other people, especially doing this work. We cannot do it by ourselves because we need, to be replenished ourselves. And so I want to ask you now, as you are now entering or have been in your acting journeys, this is the phase where you are in now. Who knows where she'll be next week, but we're here for it. What has that been like, and what was the call that led you into that direction?
Yeah, it's interesting. When I turned 30, my stepfather passed away, and it was very sudden, and I kind of had an existential crisis, you could say. And I'd been doing this more kind of facilitating women's work for almost a decade, since I was like 21, 22. And I just felt empty. Like my own personal cup was empty, and I didn't have that motivation to run a course or to be out there. And I kind of went into a cave, and I asked myself, if I could do anything, right now, like what would I do? And I also had received a bit of money from an insurance policy from my stepfather. So I had enough to sustain myself for that year without needing to like hustle with work. And I just sat there and was like, I want to do an acting course, because my inner child loved being on stage and, was such a drama queen, but was told she's too tall to be an actress. So, you have those like childhood dreams, to be a singer or a dancer, and then you get older and you're like, well, you're not the best singer, so you may as well just give up on that dream, because only singers sing, or, only real actors act. And I remember just giving myself permission to play and be like, do you know what? I'm just going to go do this course. Doesn't mean I'm going to go to Hollywood and be a superstar. I mean, you never know. But the point was to give my little girl permission to play. And it was so healing. And it honestly just brought me so much joy and so much energy, which then I got to cultivate to take back into my business and back into the work. And honestly, it was so refreshing, because being in a group and an industry that I used to judge as kind of superficial or not service oriented, or, like, we seem sometimes to think in the spiritual world that we're doing the hard work, And I kind of got so over that group and that righteousness in a way. And it is its own bubble sometimes. So stepping out of that and into this like world of artists who like weren't trying to fucking fix themselves. They were there to just have a good time and express themselves and tell stories. And yeah, it just lit my fire. And I realized actually, these are my peers. These are people who are interested in humanity. Like actors are some of the hardest workers I've ever.
Mm,
They are willing to feel everything and express that emotion to the world so that they can change the minds of the people they're telling stories to.
yeah.
And I just remember being like so, yeah, kind of floored by the bravery and sensitivity of these other humans that I was training with. And yeah, realizing that our service and our gifts can come in many facets. And we live in a world where media is one of the greatest programming conscious like things of our society. So if I can kind of get into that aspect of the world and sprinkle some of my own fairy, hallelujah,
Mm,
stories can change lives, and it's a very big platform of influence. So I just kind of followed the call, and things started happening. And a lot of the work has been these films that are about reclamation and earth and
mm.
witches and wisdom. And my dream ultimately is to turn my stories, my writing into films.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's so beautiful. Yeah, that's exciting too. It's really, really exciting and it's creativity. And I love that you followed the call to please your inner child and that joy. And I was just actually sitting and thinking about that the other day of like, what are the things that your inner child always wanted to do? Why don't you just do it? It doesn't have to be for anything. It doesn't have to be for the applause or for the appreciation, or it doesn't have to amount to anything. But that ultimate joy that you will create through that, that gets channeled into everything, because that's when your true radiance and your sparkle comes back on, because it's not coming from a place of lack, or it's coming from a place to please, or it's coming from that pure innocent, that channeled like innate gift and wisdom, and that will always lead the way. And so that's inspired me to play more, for sure. But definitely, for sure. And then there's another area of your life which I've also found quite fascinating, was when you went through your doula training, and you are a certified doula as well, and even that initiation into to literally helping mothers birth, and what also led you, like I said, she does many things. What led you down that path, and what was that experience like for you?
Mm. Yeah, the doula journey was very much a natural progression from, like I said, this